Okay, we'll talk right after, yeah?
Okay.
So today we're going to skip a lot of the Megillah, and we're going to go to some of the more happy parts. We finished talking about Yosef and his brothers and how it's connected. If anyone needs a Gemara, article Gemara, plenty over here. We're holding 16b, 3. 16b2 over here. 16b2. And now we can return to the Gemara. So every Motzei Shabbos, when we make Havdalah, we say one of the Psukim, one of the verses of the Megillah, and most of us are familiar with it. La Yehudim Haisa Eira V'Simcha V'Sasain V'Yikar. And the Jews, they had light and joy, v'simcha v'sasain, and exaltation and gladness, vikar. Oira means light. Simcha is a revealed happiness. Sasain is more of a concealed happiness. When someone's just glad and happy, but they're not, acting happy on the outside, but they're just a very happy person, that is sasain. Simcha is acting happy externally, and vikar means honor.
What page are we?
16b2. 2. I'm getting more for Rabbi.
No, good.
You good? Okay, fine. Excellent. Thank you. So the Jews had, this is right after Mordechai goes out in front of the king in all of his royal garments. And the Jews were glad and joyous. This is still under threat of a decree of Haman. Haman was hung already on gallows, but we have not yet come to the point where the Jews have been saved yet. But already Mordechai is being honored by the king, and Haman was hung. If you look at it at the pasuk, well, we'll go through in short, not the entire Megillah, not verse for verse, a general gist of the Megillah, because we're skipping quite a lot over here in our explanation. It says, on that day, which is the second day of Pesach, first day of Chol Moed Pesach, Achashverosh gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman. And we explained how could they take a house of an Amaleki you had to destroy, how could you have benefit from his house? Mordechai came in front of the king because Esther said how they were related. The king gave his signet ring to Mordechai. Esther begged the king, please annul the decree that Haman had devised against the Jews. The king stretched his scepter out to Esther and says, I'm sorry, once the decree went out, I can't abolish, I cannot annul it. And Esther's crying and begging the king. So the king says, listen, what else do you want from me? I hung Haman on the gallows. I gave his entire wealth to Mordechai. Here's my signet ring. Write whatever you want. Decree whatever you want for good for the Jews. Just you can't abolish my last decree. So Mordechai called the king's scribes, and they all wrote a new decree on Chav Gimel Sivan, the 23rd of Sivan, which is always an auspicious day, a special day. We can make any decree we want for the good, and Hashem will listen. And Mordechai decreed that right to every single Jew, that comes the 13th of Adar, the day that the Jews are supposed to be killed by their enemies, all the Jews can protect themselves. It was written in the name of King Achashverosh, sealed with the king's signet ring, sent out messengers, couriers on horseback to all of the people of the countries. It's interesting what they call it, harachshronim b'nei haramachim. The camels, bred of ramachim themselves, are a certain type of very steeds, very fast horses. The Persians had a very advanced system of communication in their kingdom. Their kingdom was so vast, so large, But the way they communicated between the entire kingdom is they had a very advanced system of horses and of roads that were paved. And so they had these very fast steeds called the sons of the Ramachim. I'm just trying to bring it up on the screen here. We'll go through some of the royal toll road. And he sent messengers to the entire kingdom that the Jews can protect themselves. It says in verse 14, the couriers, those who rode the king's steeds and the camels, Yatsu, they left. Mevayalim means confused. Behala. They're confused, pressed by the king's order. And the edict was given in Shushan, the capital. They were very confused because just 3 days before, Haman sent out messengers to all 127 countries to destroy the Jews. 3 days later, they're having a message sent out. Now Jews could protect themselves, defend themselves. They're very confused. What's this suddenly going out? Another shot, which is said by many Jews who underwent many, unfortunately, decades of centuries of persecution, uses the word mivoy halim, confused or hastened. When the messengers, the couriers of the king, when they received a decree that they had to send out to all 127 countries to destroy the Jews, for them, there's nothing unique, nothing surprising about that. We've all been there, done that, meaning we've been the messengers of such type of decrees in the past. A decree that's going out that the Jews could protect themselves, something good for the Jews, that's Mevayalim. Mevayalim, they were confused. It's very confusing. They've never seen such a thing. That Jews are allowed to protect themselves. And that's why they were very confused.
When you say they, the citizens of Persia?
The couriers. It says Haratzim, the runners, the couriers.
Rabbi,
yes.
Mevayalim means terrified.
Terrified?
Yeah, Mevayalim is terrified.
Right, so they were terrified, I guess, also from this entire thing. So I'm trying to find the picture over here. Let me see if I could pull it up on the screen for everybody.
Because the king couldn't say he made a mistake.
I guess that's part of the thing. Here is Mordechai used a signet ring. So here's a signet ring and a stamp discovered in the ruins of Persepolis, the other palace of Achashverosh. And this is what a ring would look like. And this is what the stamp. This is the inner part, and that's when you would stamp it, it will come out looking like this. There are many different signet rings and stamps that they had. Here's the remains. I'm trying to find it right now. One of my pictures. The remains of the royal road, which connected Shushan and Sardinia, which were used by the king's riders, and they had a whole system, which till today we have writings about it. And they had a system that they would send a messenger, a rider, a high-speed rider was only able to go a certain distance, and later on, and they would give it to the next rider who would go as fast as he could, and then until his horse stopped, and they would give it to the next rider. And it wouldn't take more than 2 weeks. This was the Persian Empire, and it would take no longer than 2 weeks. You see, Babylonia is sort of in the center, for a message to get from here to anywhere else in the empire. Right? Look, even in the 1800s, the War of 1812, it finished more than 2 weeks before the biggest battle of the war, the Battle of New Orleans. Right? Mm-hmm. Even in the 1800s, it took time for word to get around the corners of the empire, but it took no longer than 2 weeks. They had roads, royal roads, and it would spread the word of the king to the entire empire. A matter of fact, when they started the U.S. Postal Service, many millennia later, they actually were following the Persian system of sending out messages. Yeah. And there's many roads. We have just a few of them. This is the remains of the royal road, which connected Shush, where it is now, to Sardis, and this is used by and this road is one of the roads that are described by one of the Greek historians. So this message is sent out. And we find in other places references to documents that were received from Shushan or Persepolis. Now Mordechai, it says the Jews were full of joy and singing and dancing. Full of joy and happiness and this gladness, vikar, and honor. Says the Gemara doesn't take this just at face value. Gobi, you need a Gemara? We're 16b2. Because usually whenever in the Torah you want to use the word light, you use the word ar. The first time that we use the word oira, it's very rare, but this is perhaps one of the only times we use the word oira. Oira means, it's a female terminology, it's the same as the word ar, but it means oira. It means light. So why use a female terminology instead of the common ar, which means light, use oira? So the Gemara will say, La Yehudim Haisa Oira, the Jews had light, the simcha and joy and sasin and gladness, vikar and honor. Amar Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, 16b2. Oira zu Torah. The word oira, the reason why it uses a lashon nekeva, a female term of the word, is because the word oira is referring to Torah. The Torah is also a female terminology, ends with a kamatei. In Hebrew, a word which ends with a kamatei or a saf is lashon nekeva. We don't really have it in English, but many languages around the world have a male term and female term. And as Rashi explains over here, that Haman made a decree, 4 decrees against the Jewish people. It's interesting. I read in a certain medrash. Do you know how long Haman's entire reign of terror was? 52 days. In that 52 days, he managed to get a decree signed against the Jews, get angry at Mordechai. And one of the decrees that he made 4 decrees against the Jewish people. One of them was that they're not allowed to learn Torah. After Haman died, after Haman was killed, they no longer were afraid. And they could start learning Torah once again. V'cheinu omer, and so too it says, Kiner mitzvah v'Torah ar. Shlomo HaMelech writes, the mitzvah is compared to a candle, Torah is compared to light. So we see that Torah is called light. Haman made a decree the Jews cannot learn Torah, and now the Jews are once again able to learn Torah once again. Continues the Gemara. It says, what's the second one? Simcha, joy. What is joy? Says the Gemara, V'simcha ze yamtiv. Simcha, gladness, refers to a holiday. Where do we see that a holiday is considered a day of simcha? Because it says, the Torah says you should be happy, in your holiday. So Haman made a decree, Jews cannot celebrate Yom Tov, and now the Jews could celebrate Yom Tov again. In addition to that, we now had an extra Yom Tov called Purim. Next.
I've been checking out the Megillah and
Chabad.org. Excellent. Sasin, the next one is Sasin, which means gladness, which is a type of joy, which is, you could say, a more concealed joy. Zumila, it's going on, bris milah. One of the things that Haman also made a decree was that Jews cannot circumcise their sons. And he's going to bring a verse that Sasin means a bris milah. It says, Sas and Anoichi al imrasecha. In chapter 119 of Tehillim, I am glad on your speech, on imrasecha. Every single mitzvah of the Torah was given with the word Vayedaber, and Hashem spoke. Vayedaber Hashem Moshe lemor, and Hashem spoke to Moshe saying. every mitzvah except for one. One mitzvah is Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem said. And the mitzvah, the reason why is Vayomer Elokim Avram. Hashem said to Avram, "The atas risi tishmer, you should do my mitzvah." It says the mitzvah of bris milah is different than every other mitzvah in the Torah. A certain Gemara which says there will come a time in the future, and it's remember from the times of the Gemara, where most Jews will not be keeping Shabbos. Most Jews will not be keeping kosher. Most Jews will not be doing many of the mitzvahs of the Torah, but all Jews will be keeping bris milah. And the question the Gemara asks is why? Bris milah is seemingly a very difficult mitzvah. It's injuring for a part of the body. And how come most Jews will keep the mitzvah of bris milah and will not keep the other mitzvahs? And we see it today throughout the world. I mean, it's obviously a prophecy for the 20th and 21st century, where throughout the world, unfortunately, many Jews don't keep most of the mitzvahs of the Torah. But bris milah, for some reason, is very strongly kept by all Jews around the world. Why? Even in Russia, where they couldn't keep it, the second they were allowed to make a bris milah, everyone started once again. Adults.
If doctors do it, that's not considered bris milah to a newborn child. Then
when a doctor does it, it's not totally halachically a bris milah, but it's at least a big part of it. I'm saying it's pretty close to it. It would be like the equivalent of at least half of a bris milah.
I met a Yid.
Yeah.
His parents were very fabrente communist, and they did not make him a bris milah.
Yeah.
And when the Germans came in, they captured thousands of young Ukrainian guys who were just thrown to the front. And they made him pass by a table, and there was a German who could smell a Jew, and he tried to make him to go with the Jews. He says, no, he's not a Jew. He said, cross yourself. And he knew how to do it. He says, take off your pants. He sees he's an Orel. He says, can't be. He says, I know you're a Jew. I know you're a Jew, but a Jew, no bris milah, could go with the goyim.
Oh, wow.
And it saved his life.
Saved his life. Wow.
Yeah.
Got a bris later on? Or?
Yeah, well, Bris Abraham got him.
Later on, he came to America, he got a bris. Wow.
This guy, he used to rent out yarmulkes and tzitzis and teach the goyim to say Shema Yisrael. And the Chabad would come, they would get free mashka like that.
Interesting. He says, because when the Jews accepted all the other mitzvahs of the Torah, it's like, okay, it's like being in school. You're being told what to do, but without any joy. The mitzvah of bris milah was accepted with joy, with sasan. And that's why it's still kept till today. And David HaMelech one time was in the bathhouse and he saw that he had no mitzvahs on him. David HaMelech would always walk around with Tefillin and always walk around with tzitzis or talis. And he's in the bathhouse and he was a king. He carried a Torah with him. He didn't have his Torah. He didn't have his Tefillin. He didn't have his tzitzis. And he felt sad. I have no mitzvahs until he saw his bris milah. I mean, he had a yamka and payas, a beard and payas, but those are not positive mitzvahs, meaning grow a beard, grow payas. In the Torah, it's a negative mitzvah. Don't cut your beard, don't cut your payas. So he didn't have any positive mitzvah to connect himself. And then he saw his bris milah, which is a positive mitzvah, and then he became happy. And that's what one of the chapter in Tehillim, Lamnatseach al Hashminis. Lamnatseach is a song for the choir master, al Hashminis for the 8th. What does it mean for the 8th? It means for the 8th day. Lamnatseach is usually a happy term because David HaMelech became happy once he saw he had a bris milah. So the idea of bris milah is sasan, is idea of happiness. Haman made a decree that Jews cannot make a bris milah, and Shminis means the 8th, for what takes place on the 8th day. And therefore, he was happy on the fact that he had a bris milah, which takes place on the 8th day. The last one is sasan v'yikar. V'yikar is honor. Elu tefillin. This is referring to tefillin. Haman made a decree. You can't put on tefillin. And tefillin are called the honor of the Jewish people. And similarly it says, V'ra'u kol amei ha'aretz, ki shem Hashem nikra elecha, v'yaru mimeka. And all the nations of the world will see that the name of God is called on you, and they will fear from you. And it says, they will, this is a pasuk in Devarim, and they will flee from you in 7 directions. With Tanya, and we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol Omer, Rabbi Eliezer the Great says, Elu Tefillin Sheberosh. These are referring to wearing tefillin on the head. Haman had banned the fulfillment of putting on tefillin, and when Haman was killed, the Jews were once again allowed to put on tefillin. What did Haman have against these 4 mitzvahs? Why did he choose these 4 mitzvahs? Milah, bris milah, tefillin, learning Torah, and keeping Yom Tiv. The Maharsha explains because these 4 mitzvahs are called oisas, signs. It says about tefillin, oisi, it's my sign. Shabbos is oisi beincha vein Hashem. It's a sign between me and you. And Yom Tiv is in the same category. Tefillin says, should be a sign on your hand that we're connected to Hashem. Bris milah is a sign, basar, and it should be a sign on your flesh. All these mitzvahs are signs of our connection between us and Hashem. Haman wanted to eradicate the connection between us and Hashem. And therefore, Haman decreed specifically on these 4 mitzvahs. Sfas Emes asked the question, if the Megillah wants to say, and the Jews were able to keep now the mitzvah of learning Torah and keeping Yom Tiv and wearing tefillin and having a bris milah, why not just say so clearly? Why does it have to say we had joy and light and gladness and honor? Why say this in euphemisms? Why not say it just directly? First Ger Rebbe, Sfas Emes. Talmud of the, second Ger Rebbe, the son of the Chidush Arim, Talmud of Nachum Mendel of Kotsk.
The son of the son of the Chidush Arim.
Sfas Emes was a grandson of the Chidush Arim?
Yeah, because what happened was his father died.
Okay. Interesting. And Imri Emes was the son of the Sfas Emes.
Indeed, named after his grandfather.
Which one?
Who died.
Interesting. So why not just say it directly? So Sfas Emes explains is that the Jews at that time, many Jews were assimilated into Persian culture. You know, it's only 4 days. They're still very fresh, deeply into the, even though they did teshuvah, they're still very deep into the Persian, steeped in it in the Persian culture. But even such a Jew realized that what makes me happy, not having an extra home in the Maldives, not going on vacation, not having a beautiful car, not getting myself the choicest cut of meat. That's not what makes me happy. Not getting honor. What every Jew realized, that the real light is Oira, is Torah. The real light is Simcha, is joy, is gladness. Sasain, you realize having a bris milah is the most important joy that we could possibly have. So every single Jew was able to realize this. So this indeed made them have a lot, is what happened, is part of the miracle of Purim. That the joy of every Jew was a bris milah. And every single Jew was able to realize that. If you look at the last one, it says, V'yikar elu tefillin. And gladness and joy, this is an honor, this is tefillin. What is our honor to the rest of the world? Our tefillin is how we are honored. How does every single Jew receive their honor? So this Gemara was brought down by the Rebbe brought it down several times, especially at the time when talking about security of Eretz Yisrael, security of Israel. I brought it up on my phone, but not over here. So we'll get to them one by one. But look at the last words of the Gemara over here. It says, V'yikar, and honor is tefillin. And it says, the nations of the world will see you and they will fear from you. Says Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, these are the tefillin shebirosh that are worn on the head. But he uses the word shebirosh, which is in the head. When the Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, and this is I'm in the prison where the Alter Rebbe is in Petersburg. This is many years ago. And they have several wax statues of several of the important prisoners. So one of them is the Alter Rebbe. Don't ask me how they managed to think this is what the Alter Rebbe looked like and why he's wearing a robe which looks like it belongs to someone from a different type of belief.
What is that?
This is a statue of the Alter Rebbe.
Right. What religion was such a robe?
A priest of another religion.
Well, they do.
Looks like Greek Orthodox a little bit.
Russian Orthodox.
Okay,
So who put that? Who then made this picture?
that's what they want.
They made a wax statue in Russia of the Alter Rebbe. Because they made a statue of several important prisoners. Here we are. This is my father and a whole bunch of other people, which we are actually the only area where the Alter Rebbe originally was is the steps. Or some Hatzvi-Bais Shalom. This is on the steps. The Alter Rebbe will be taken into prison, out of prison. My father, right there, having a foolish shlema very soon. Let's pause that. So let's go through these pictures. This is the staircase to the Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment. The one who's arrested in. Wow. Says there were chassidim waiting on the staircase a whole night, going to Yichidus every night. It was like a whole. So here is a map of the prison, and in this round building is where the Alter Rebbe was in jail, was imprisoned, and the only part of the original part of that building is the steps are still there. That's where we were singing Hatzvi-Bais Shalom. Here was a non-Jewish tour guide. We're asking him, can you show us? He tells in Russian, Alter Rebbe, Alter Rebbe. And he showed us where it is. So we gave him a Chaim. Russian tour guide was very happy with it.
Rabbi, is that Rabbi Yitzchok with you?
Yes. Right over there, and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see, what?
You were there too.
I was there too. That's me over there.
How many years ago?
5 years ago, 6 years ago.
That was made for tourists because you see English, you don't see Russian.
Yeah.
The top.
That area now is like a tourist tourist place. So it says Alter Rebbe. This is a plaque over there. An Orthodox rabbi, the founder, the first Rebbe of Chabad, a branch of Hasidic Judaism. Shulchan Aruch Harav, Tanya. The 19th of Kislev is celebrated annually by Chabad Chassidim, who hold a festive meal and make communal pledges to learn the whole Talmud in a practice known as Chalukas Hashas.
The Russian words over there, I'm missing a letter. It says liad. The E is missing.
Interesting. This is when we tried going to the Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment. So we know the apartment number. I think it was number 12. We knock on the apartment door, and when we walked in, the lady basically told us that they switched around the apartment numbers. So in this apartment over here, this is actually the KGB during the time the Frierdiker Rebbe was there. They rented that apartment, or they took it over, and they used to put listening devices on the walls to listen what's going on in Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment.
You always have to assume everybody's KGB.
And this is the door this is the entrance to Frierdiker Rebbe's apartment. So this is a prison in the Frierdiker Rebbe, Shpalerka. So when Alter Rebbe was in prison, so there was one time he was taken to questioning, and the Alter Rebbe went to the side and he put on his tefillin. And when Alter Rebbe turned around after he put on his tefillin, said everybody, all the people there, suddenly, all the non-Jews, interrogators and the officers, suddenly they became they had a huge fright. They became very, very scared. A huge fright. And later on, the Alter Rebbe, when he recounted it, he said that the reason is because he's wearing tefillin. And like it says, Elu tefillin shebereish. These are, like it says over here, these are the tefillin in the head, on the head. And so somebody asks, how come when we put on tefillin, the nations of the world don't get scared? The Alter Rebbe says, because if you look at the words of this Gemara that we're learning now, it says Elu tefillin shebereish, that are in the head. It doesn't say that are al harosh, that are on the head. It says that are in the head, meaning somebody which internalizes tefillin. Like the Alter Rebbe, when they put on tefillin, the entire world is scared of them. The nations of the world have a fright of them.
Can you explain a little bit? What do you mean by internalized tefillin? Think about it's
someone, I guess, who appreciates the real mitzvah of tefillin. Have kavana, I guess I would say. That would be the best, that would be the proper thing. Kavana. When they're putting on tefillin, they're doing it with their entire being. They're not just like putting on tefillin as a thing which is from the outside, but they're doing it with their entire, I guess, their entire essence. Now, in 1967, right before the 6-Day War, so there was a very, Israel, it's only 20 years after the Holocaust, and Israel's full of Holocaust survivors, and Israel is literally surrounded on all sides by enemies who are ready to attack it, and that's what happened. Jordan attacked it, Syria attacked it, Egypt attacked it, Lebanon attacked it.
There was situation that Russia gave misinformation to Egypt, saying actually Israel was going to attack, and Egypt was actually giving misinformation to Jordan and Syria, saying, "Oh, we're doing good, we're going to be helping you," and so ended up being Israel wiped out the Egyptian Air Force first thing. It was just amazing.
And several weeks before, I'm trying to get the video, which will show it much. X out all of these. Several weeks before the 6-Day War started, the Rebbe started a campaign, the Tefillin campaign, the first of the Mitzayim, the Tefillin campaign.
Was several weeks before the 6-Day War?
Several weeks before the 6-Day War.
Oh, interesting.
That's when the Rebbe started it. And I'm not sure if this is the video. And the Rebbe quoted this pasuk many, many times. V'ro kol amei aretz, all the nations of the world will see that the eyes of that the name of Hashem is on you, and they will fear from you and run away from you in 7 directions. And these are tefillin. That's what the Rebbe says. You should put on tefillin every single person, every single Jew, especially every Jew, every soldier in the army. And this will make the Jewish people victorious. Now, they were sending around in Israel, they were expecting 10,000 dead soldiers, Jewish soldiers. That's what they were expecting. This is only the first part. I'm trying to find the second part. Play this part of the video, but trying to find the second part. What about tefillin?
May 1967. Egypt expels UN forces from the Sinai Peninsula and mobilizes over 100,000 troops at Israel's border. The Straits of Tiran are closed to Israeli shipping, putting a stranglehold on the import of vital supplies. As the armies of Syria and Jordan join in the military buildup, Jews around the world look on.
It's actually one of those soldiers. I think that this one over there is Rabbi Menachem Ruddle. Do you remember him? Rabbi Ruddle? Yeah. It's actually him right there. Oh, wow. He was a bacher in the yeshiva in Kfar Chabad, and his parents were telling him, come home. Everyone's telling him, come home. So he wrote to the Rebbe, what should I do? The Rebbe says, stay near Israel. It's the safest place in the world. So that's the case. Why should I stay in Kfar Chabad? Let me go see a war up close. And he went to Yerushalayim, to yeshiva there. And Rabbi Ruddle, remember him, right? Of course. And so he was involved. Whenever there were battles, he would walk outside. The Rebbe said it's safe. He says he's seen tanks in front of him, bullets whizzing. So that's actually him, this bacher over here who's digging sandbags.
Fearful apprehension, feeling powerless to help. At that year's Lag BaOmer parade, only days before the 6-Day War broke out, the Rebbe offers the children a practical way to contribute to the security and victory of their brethren in the Holy Land.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to here. The second part of that film is all about how the Rebbe started Tefillin campaign.
Excuse me, they had, when I got there in 67.
Yeah.
So it was in the neighborhoods, they had open graves. They expected so many there. Right in the neighborhood, they have trenches for the graves.
So they sent messengers to public parks to see which parks could be converted to cemeteries from the chief rabbinate.
Also,
He did a sort of outreach campaign, but that's one rabbi in the 13th century and in a very limited way. So it was really hard to find a precedent for somebody who did this in a systematic way.
Als rumgefahren mit dieses Paar, mit dieses Andruse, Medina. Und gefahren nach Medina, was jeden Tag nicht gewesen können. Und er sah hin, auf den gefahren, auf den gerät, und wenn wusste gerät, was jeden Herzen kein Leben kann bringen können. Ich sage, na Gott, das erzählt, was ist das erzählt? Aber Sie wissen da, wie wir das erzählen. Und im Detail, ich doch in die Wasser, ich schon nicht da, also bringe jemand hin. Nur das auch in Russia, als Kartel man es findet. Überlegt einen einzigen Wort findet. Nennt mal es von dem Zug, der Kartel man es findet. Ich bestellt mal an in dem Zug, und man es findet. Die noch in die Missverständnis gewesen.
The Israel Defense Forces have taken necessary steps to meet all eventualities. These steps include a limited
היו העתודה של מפקד חיל האוויר המצרי והועמדו לרשות פיקוד האוויר המזרחי.
פיקודי הכוחות המצריים בסיני הגיעו לממדים המגדירים מתיחות באזור.
ערב המלחמה במדינת ישראל, אני זוכר אותה כתקופה מפחידה מבחינת הציבור פחד. אלה היו הימים שממשלת ישראל בראשותו של לוי אשכול ניסתה למנוע את המלחמה. אבל מצד שני היה ברור לה שאם צבא מצרים מתקדם בסיני, המלחמה בדרך.
Military spokesman announced this evening that following the entry of a large number of Egyptian troops to eastern Sinai, and following the withdrawal of the United Nations emergency forces at the request of Egypt,
the armies of Syria and Jordan, bristling with weapons and with aid promised by Iraq, Algeria, Kuwait, and Afghanistan,
הרגישו חנק, הרגישו מחנק. נאצר במערכת התעמולה שלו, השידורים שיצאו ממצרים, השידורים שיצאו מסוריה, היו שידורים מאוד מתלהמים. הציבור אגר מזון, הוא לא ידע לאן כל זה הולך, אולי שואה.
It became
am I dying 2 minutes?
אלה היו הימים שממשלה בדרך. הציבור אגר מזון, הוא לא ידע לאן כל זה הולך, אולי שואה חדשה באה. אז ל"ג בעומר, ארצות הברית, היה מצעד גדול מול 770, והרבי יצא לדבר מול הצועדים.
Was geschehen ist, nach Eretz, Zkainim, Eretz Israel. Kein nicht so ein Lage, wo der Liebe steht bei Schütze und schütze seine Brüche und Zwecke in Yitzchok, in der vergrößerte Lust. Die Geist ist nach Rieskommen, also Rieskommen. Und die Kitschtige Masse mit Hatzvi-Bais.
בזמנו נשא אז לוי אשכול נאום שעד היום נקרא נאום הגמגום, שלא ידע אפילו פשוט מה לומר לעם, ומול הגמגומים בא דמות כמו הרבי, גישה חדה, ברורה, עם הסמכותיות שלו, שבא ואומר לא הולכת להיות שואה אחרת, תהיה תשועה,
Die schafft immer weiter beherzigt. Als wir die Leute zu sagen, wir sind die Sicher. Und die Familie zusammen. Und den Jüngern und die Jüngern in der Geschichte. Wir sind die Frau. Wir sind die Firma nicht geben. Die Jüngern haben die Psyche nach Deutschland als Frau.
Where's our rabbi?
Looks like he knocked himself out. I looked at the list of participants. Wait a minute. I think he might have just come back. Yeah, he's back. No, he's not. There he is.
Rabbi, we can't hear you.
Yeah, my computer just died, and so we'll finish that part maybe tomorrow, right in the beginning. We'll start off finishing that part about Tefillin in the 6-day war. How you see the Yeshuas, the salvation of Hashem, and if we want to help our Jews, our brethren in Eretz Yisrael, it's definitely by putting on Tefillin and adding and helping others to put on Tefillin as well. One last thing, every one of these 4 mitzvahs, Tefillin and Torah, they teach us something very unique. Tefillin, and let's say each of them are answering sort of a question that a Jew could have. A Jew says, listen, Haman was killed, Haman was hung, but still, what does it help me that Haman was hung? We're still under Achashverosh. We're still suffering in exile. We're still going through hardships. Today, we're safe from Haman. What's going to be in the future? Maybe another Haman will stand up. It's happened many times throughout our history. It happened in the Holocaust. It happened in the Crusades. It happened in the Cossacks. It happened in the Inquisition. It happened many, many times, many places that kings or rulers just as powerful as Haman have stood up and tried destroying us or persecuted us. So you're saying a Jew will still get very despondent and say, listen, what's there to be happy about? I'm in exile. Things are not looking good. What's there to be positive about? Here, the Megillah tells us a very powerful message. Oira zu Torah. You want to know how to stay positive in exile? Look at Torah. Torah is Hashem's blueprint for the world. To survive Galus, in order to go through Galus and thrive, you're going to need to learn Torah. Without Torah, you're right. It's really not possible. It's not doable to survive and thrive without Torah. Torah is Hashem's way and Hashem's blueprint. And if one attaches himself to the Torah, they could live above and be separate from all of the problems that are going on in Galus. What about Simcha? Could a Jew be happy in Galus? Reveal joy. How about Sasain? A inner joy. And Vikar, I could be proud. How could I be proud of what's going on in Galus? So every one of these things show how Hashem saves us, changes our life. Torah is our life. Hashem on Purim, He saved our life from death to life. Torah is Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. It's a tree of life. Sasoin zu simcha is a yamtiv. The second one, Erev is simcha, is joy, yamtiv. A holiday, there's a mitzvah to eat meat and to drink wine. Don't think that just because a world is a physical and it's against everything spiritual should be an aesthetic. No, to fulfill the mitzvah of Yom Tov properly, it's by eating meat and drinking wine. That is how Hashem connects us. So we have a physical world, still Hashem could connect us. We are connected to Hashem in everything we do. Next thing, the Sasa and Zumila, Bris Milah. Bris Milah, seemingly on the outside, doesn't look like a happy thing. It's giving pain to a child. Why is it such a simcha, a joy? Why is it a mitzvah says that the Jews accepted with joy? And the answer of David HaMelech. David HaMelech said that wherever I go, the only thing that can never be taken away from me is my bris milah. He can be taken away from his Torah, from his mitzvahs, from his tefillin, from his talis, from his Torah. He can be taken away from everything. But he can't be taken away from his bris milah. It's Hashem's sign they were constantly with us. Even though the bris milah itself could be painful, and that's why it's for a child to be done, but nevertheless, it's always a positive. It's a time of simcha. So the same thing is saying we are in galus, in exile. It could be painful on the outside, but it's really in our pain, Hashem is with us. And really Hashem is actually being with us. And if we just tune into Hashem, it will change our pain into joy. One does not give a bris. In order, it says when a person has a bris, his taivas, his desires, or physical lust and desires become weaker. It becomes a very big joy for a Jew. So if we have a difficulty in exile, we know from the mitzvah of bris how we can still connect to Hashem. Fine. How about this? I'll get through exile. I'll be happy. Should I be proud to be Jewish? Should I? Listen. At the end of the day, we're in a non-Jewish society, and you look outside. It looks, at least from the external, some people are out there having a good time, enjoying life, and us, we are standing so far from everything that's good and so far from everything that's holy. This is what Tefillin. Tefillin, it says, Vikar, these are your honor. Want to be honored by the nations of the world. The nations of the world only honor somebody, a Jew who is proud of themselves. A Jew who is hiding with themselves are not honored by the nations of the world. The Tefillin has 4 parshias. And each of the 4 parshas have another, one of the mitzvahs of Hashem, how we have to love Hashem and fear Hashem, are written on the parshas. It's not just only one pasuk of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, but rather which means listen to Hashem without asking any questions, be ready to give up your life, Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem. Seemingly, that you would think that would be enough for a Jew to differentiate himself from the nations of the world. I'm ready to give up my life for Hashem. However, Tefillin has another 4 parshas. You should love Hashem. You should learn Torah. Teach your children. And more than that, Tefillin, you take the leather and you wrap your arms with it. You make it go down along towards your heart, from your head down to your heart. Tefillin is what makes us, is our honor to the nations of the world. That although we are different, our differences is what makes the nations of the world respect and look up to the Jews. So these 4 things are what Haman made a decree on, because these things are what differentiate Jews from the rest of the nation. You know, the non-Jew, the nations of the world, they could eat a fancy meal, but it's never going to be a simchas Yom Tov, a joy of Yom Tov. They might give themselves a bris. In America, I think it's up to 50% give themselves at least some type of bris, right? But they're never going to have the hamshachas nefesh HaKadoshah, bringing down the holy soul. Then if they want to wrap themselves in beautiful clothes, it's never going to get to the idea of the glory of Tefillin. And they can learn great sciences, but you're never going to connect your mind to Hashem like Torah does. And this is how we're able to get through galus. And this brings oira v'simcha. Even in a time of exile, we still can have joy. Oira, light of Hashem. That is a joy which happens when a Jew learns Torah. Every Jew is the only child to Hashem. And Hashem shows his love to us by showing he's with us in every single step. Every step of our lives is dictated by Torah. Torah tells us what to do, how to do, at what moment, every single time, every single moment. So therefore, it's Hashem showing us he's involved in every aspect of our lives because he loves us. Torah is Hashem's embrace to us. Yom Tov is a similar thing as well. Yom Tov is a holy time, and we also have to have Gam Lechem, also enjoy that physical desires, of physical pleasures. And a bris milah is also the same thing.